All right, folks, I believe there are still folks coming from lunch, so we're getting a little late start today. I apologize. But let's go ahead and get something on the screen. You guys are having too much fun over there. Yeah, there's still folks coming in, so we'll get started here shortly. There we go. Okay. So it'll be faster than 5 minutes, but just want to make sure we give folks coming from lunch time to join us. So we'll get started in 2 minutes. Now, a bit of housekeeping. So for those of you here in person, we have provisioned VMs, and you should have received an email with an IP address. I sent it last night. Would have come from myself, Fernando at replicated.com. Yes? It should be going cloud native with Cisco, I believe. And the password is cloud native, all lowercase. If you did not get the email, my colleagues have the master spreadsheet. So they'll be able to give you the IP address if you have the email address that you used to register. You'll have the master list to help. The username will be KOTS, K-O-T-S, and the password is replicated, all lowercase. To log into the VM, is KOTS, K-O-T-S, as the username. And then you do, the password will be replicated, a lowercase. But I will go through all this as well. I will walk through it. So we should probably get started. So just some housekeeping information will be the agenda today. If you've already been here, you've probably already heard about Replicated, but just a little spiel on that, and just so you'll know kind of what we do, what we're here for. Then let's talk about the quest, kind of how it's going to go. I'll give you the instructions. Then I want to walk you through most of the lab. I'm going to walk you up to the point where you need to do some troubleshooting on your own. But I don't want to show you the fix yet, so I'm going to let you all go through the instructions and kind of figure out the solution. If you're able to solve it, great. You completed your quest. But at the end, I will go through the solution just in case there's any questions or anybody has anything. But again, for those of you on the live stream, unfortunately, due to the great demand that we got, we were not able to accommodate VMs for you all in order to give you, folks to answer your questions and so forth. So you should have gotten an email with a link to a virtual version of this lab, where we can do this in a smaller group virtually, and we can give you the necessary help to have a successful lab. So again, for those of you in person, you should have a VM, and upon completion, we'll give you the ring. And then for those of you remote, you're more than welcome to stay on the live stream and watch us. But please look out for that email with a link to sign up for those virtual sessions where we'll be able to break you all into small groups and be able to provide you the right support. So without further ado, let's get started. So there's one exit, the one that we came from. There are other exits. I just want to make sure you all are aware of exits. Please keep your mask on throughout the session. This is a very interactive session, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand. My colleagues are with the red shirts. Replicated red shirts are here to help. So just raise your hand, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. And of course, this is the last session for Replicated for today. So let's have some fun, and then we'll be done. OK, so if you've been here, you might have seen this slide. For those of you that do not, what Replicated came into being is about helping software companies deliver applications to complex customer environments. So those may be VPC. It could be a government air-gap environment. So it's not just about the delivery of the applications, but as well as how do you manage the application, how do you do upgrades, how do you help your end users with those applications in those environments. And what we've seen is that many software companies are migrating from the old Java monoliths or the .NET monoliths into first containers and then into orchestration like Kubernetes. But the challenge has been that even though the software manufacturer is going cloud native, the targets are not, the customers or the customer environments. Some customers could have VMs, some could have Kubernetes. So how do you support all of those, right? So Replicated is here to help folks, software vendors, sell more software, install faster, and support efficiently. And this is all for those that have Kubernetes native applications, because we're at KubeCon. So today, during the Quest of the Ring, we're going to deliver an application into Kubernetes using a VM. And then the application is going to have some issues, and then we're going to fix those. So your quest today is to successfully install Kubernetes in a VM and deploy an application, and have the application come up, because there's going to be a button that you can click to open the application. It's an Nginx application. If you're able to do that, you've earned your ring of Kubernetes. So to help you in your quest, we have armed you with a VM. We've armed you with replicated tooling. For this session, we're only using our open source tooling, and we'll use that to help you on your quest. We did set up two quest types. There's an easy path, and there's a harder path. So that if you choose the easy path, great. It's going to be mostly UI-based. You're going to have to get on the command line a little bit, but you'll earn your ring. If you choose the hard way, you may have to get on the command line a little more, create a couple of Kubernetes resources, but then we can give you a ring, and then you can have also a replicated. We have headbands, we have hoodies. So if you choose the harder path, we'll give you something extra. Again, if you need help, raise your hand. We're here to help you. And yes? Okay. Okay. You're welcome. So I will actually walk you through it. So you should have received an email with an IP address of the VM, and the lab instructions are in this bit.ly link. I also included a QR code, so that will take you to the lab instructions. So I'm going to click on it, and it's just in my GitHub repo. So as bit.ly/3, lowercase o, uppercase W, uppercase N-I, lowercase v as in Victor, uppercase E. So that should take you to the Quest for the Ring game. And these are the instructions, correct? So some of you have already started connecting. So the way to connect would be SSH COTS at whatever IP address you received. So I provisioned 2 VMs for myself. So I just need to get to my command line here. So yeah, I provisioned a lot of images for you folks. So I'm going to use this one. And you know what? We'll do. Let's make it nice and big. So to log in, you should be able to just use SSH COTS at the IP address. Hit enter. You get this message about the fingerprint. So type yes. The password should be replicated all lowercase. And then you should be able to log in. Yours will have the name, it should be in that email as well, the instance name. It's basically your first name and then a unique number. I came up with an iteration to make sure that you all had unique names for your instances. Yes? Yes, sure. I have it in PowerPoint right here. Oh, wrong one, sorry. You got it? Cool. So once you're logged into the VM, we're going to run the installation. Now, this installation will take a bit. And I'll show you kind of what it's going to do, okay? Let me go back to the instructions. So after logging in, we'll start the installation by just copying and pasting this command right here. So if you were here before for the morning session when we did an air gap installation, this is a similar installation, except that this one is an online installation. So this is where the end environment has access to the internet. But just like this morning, what this is going to start to do is leveraging our open source project curl with a K to install a one-node cluster into this VM. So what I did before this demo is I ran it already. So let me kind of walk you through what it's going to do. I'm going to go all the way to the top real quick. So this is the same command, right? So what you're going to see is it's going to download several things, write a bunch of tarballs, as you would expect. It's going to run some host preflights, just to make sure the VM has the right requirements. I'll show you in a second the project documentation for minimum requirements. It says in like this latency and things like that. Right now, I haven't to ignore failure, so it just tells me that they failed, but it continues. Then it proceeds to install the container runtime engine. In this case, I have containerd. And then it goes on to install Kubernetes, right? It starts with the hosts, installs kubelet, kubecontrol. And if you go a little further down, eventually you should see Kubernetes being bootstrapped. So initializing Kubernetes. So as you can see, it downloaded a bunch of stuff. It ran some preflights on the host. Then it proceeded to install Kubernetes. And once you see cluster initialized, it means that you have Kubernetes running on this VM. Like you're in good shape. From now on, the next step is just going to install what we call add-ons. Well, that's a term. We didn't come up with that term. But the add-ons are basically how you want to do networking, how you want to do storage, right? How it's going to make up that cluster. So here you can see it's adding all the other add-ons. We're using Rook for storage in this case. But this is all configurable. So while yours is running, mine is running as well. Let's head over to the project. Let's take a little deep dive into curl. So it's curl with a K. And as you can see here, there's a couple of ways to use this, right? There's the online method, which is this URL here. But if you look closely down here, there's also download AirGap installer. So this works both for an online installation of Kubernetes or an AirGap. In an AirGap, you're just going to get a several gigabyte sized AirGap bundle, tarball. And then here, as you can see, you can start choosing your add-ons. So containerd, you can maybe choose a different version. For some of these, you can add configuration. And as you start adding things in here, this will update your YAML as well, right? So if I put some numbers here, you can see that the pod CIDR is being set. So you can choose from your various add-ons. You can view GitHub. So if you like curl, and you're like, man, I wish you had this add-on to do this, we welcome PRs, we really do. So please, if this is something that you're passionate about, we welcome the community and participation. But these are add-ons. For documentation, go to docs. So a couple of places to go is install with curl. So here are the system requirements. So if you're running testing, if you're an engineer, you just want to learn about Kubernetes, right? And maybe you don't have access to a cluster. Most of us can spin a VM locally in our laptops. And then you can just use curl as a way to spin up a cluster for you to play with. You can learn about Kubernetes. If you already know it and you just want a test environment, this is one way to quickly spin up a Kubernetes cluster. These are the minimum requirements. But we really suggest more. Because this is just for Kubernetes, right? So I don't know what application you're going to put, but you may want to give it more. Our experience is in any cloud VM, you want to go probably to 100 gigabytes. Not so much because of the size, but we get a lot better IOPS, like the bigger the disk is. So that tends to work pretty well. And then there's options to make it highly available. There's a component there for TLS certificates. So it automatically renews your TLS certificates. We wrote an add-on called Echo that allows you to automatically renew certificates in your cluster. So if you're running it remotely, that works. So here's the documentation on the script list that you saw. Nice. OK, so this is my installer. Mine is right now is installing the host packages for Kubernetes. Raise your hand if you do not have a VM yet. Does everybody have a VM? Everybody was able to log into the VM. Okay. Everybody's installing right now? Oh, I apologize. Yes, let me show that again. I went kind of quick. Always click on that one. Now, the other two projects we're going to use today as part of this lab, you've heard about the Replicated App Manager, which is COTS, which is a play on, it's a way to manage Kubernetes applications, not only the delivery, but also the ongoing maintenance. So it has integrations into our other project, Troubleshoot.sh. So if you were in the previous session with Triva, then you got an introduction into how to use Troubleshoot.sh. So we're going to use Troubleshoot again here to find out what the cause of the issue is, and then that will take you to another documentation page, which will have the solution. I didn't want to give you the solution, so I want you all to try to fix it. And then, like I said, at the end, I'll run through the fix again. Were you able to get the instructions? Good? You're welcome. OK, so let's go back to my installer. So then once you are done, so I'll go back to the one that I already ran. So this is the one that I ran before we started here, folks. So as you can see, it will install a registry, obviously, to put all the images. I have the standard Prometheus in there. Of course, I'm installing our tool there to manage the application. You don't have to. As you saw in curl, it's an open source project. You choose what to put in there. For this case, we do want to help us use it to manage our app. But once it finishes, you'll get an installation complete. Notice that it does give you access to those 3 components and the IP addresses, as well as the login that it created. For us, though, what we're interested is in the COTS ADM command, which you will receive, once you're done. And this will be your password. Very important, at some point, you'll have to get on your command line and run some kube control commands. So make sure you run bash-l once your thing is finished, once installation is finished. And I'll go over this again. Otherwise, the kube control commands will not work. But again, all this will be specific to your instance, right? So this is the randomly generated password for this IP address that I used, right? And then you'll get the generate nodes. So as we talked earlier, if you were here earlier, and I'll mention again, with curl, you can do multiple clusters, right? You can have a high available cloud cluster, sorry. These join commands, however, are for worker nodes, if you notice. And that is because in my install script, I didn't include the HA option. So had I included the HA option, I would have 2 join commands, one for a primary node and one for a secondary node. So this one is almost done. So as you can see, mine now it's initialized the cluster. Now it's adding all the add-ons. It should be maybe now about 2 more minutes or so. Everybody's progressing along? Good? Okay. And then let us bring a new browser, a new tab for, well, we'll put the address once we get it. Trying to figure out Helena? Okay. I cannot pronounce that last name. I wonder who that lady is on the picture. So mine is just awaiting on the Rook-Ceph dashboard. So with curl, with this specific cluster, Rook is just what I had for default. There is OpenEBS. We just actually added support for Longhorn. So that's another type of storage. Minio, there's an add-on for Minio. It depends how comfortable you are since they changed the licensing. However, that applies, I believe, for a version and afterwards. So you could also use an older version of Minio if you need S3 type storage. We also have other experimental features in the works. One is to try to use K3s with curl or RKE2, or also you can put a Helm chart for any add-on that we don't currently support. But those are experimental features. I really want to give folks the most options to deliver with Kubernetes. Okay, so you install Rook-Ceph. It takes a little while to get Rook, but once it gets the dashboard up, everything else kind of goes fast. As you can see, it's installing now the registry. And once it's done with that, you should get COTS admin installed. Yeah, there you go. It's the registry. Now it's doing Prometheus. So while we're waiting for this to finish, the other thing you'll need is to deploy the application, you do need a license file. So in the project page, if I go back to that, let's go back to the instructions. In this repository, you go to the top, there's a left participant YAML. So you can either download it, or if you want to create a text file and then just copy paste the contents, you will need it. So it might be worth going and start creating your license file right now while we're waiting. Okay, and looks like mine has almost finished. So the license file, if you have like VS Code, you can just open a new file, paste the contents as your work, or if you want to clone the repository, whatever works best for you. And it looks like it's finished. So it's finished once you get to the prompt. Where's everybody right now? I'm sorry? Oh, that's just stuff. Okay. Yeah, okay, cool. We'll hold up a couple more minutes because I'd like for you all to follow along. Has anybody finished the installation where it's at the prompt? You have? Okay, great. So once it's finished, you'll want to go to this. So you'll have your own address, right? It's going to be the same IP address as the machine, port 8800, and there's a randomly generated password. The password can be reset via the kubecontrol command, but that one should just work just fine. Are you all still on the installing part? Still installing? Okay. Yes? Yes. On the TLS, yeah, the instructions, yeah, just continue, unless you have your own certificate you want to use for some reason. But you can just skip and continue. But I will also walk through that in a second, just waiting for other folks to catch up. Actually, while we wait, I'm going to turn this off for a second. I'm going to get a drink of coffee over there. So I'll be right back. If you skip ahead and are already finished, do please let us know so we can make sure you get your ring. So I'm just going to go ahead and proceed. So what you'll do is you'll find the COTS ADM URL, and you'll want to take that and obviously put it in our browser. This is the TLS warning that we were just discussing. So it's just a little warning. This will look different for each browser. This is the Chrome version. So I'm going to continue to set up. It tells me, sorry folks, large screen. We're going to do proceed. And this is the start window. So this is, since we are deploying Kubernetes into a VM, we are including self-signed certificates, but many times organizations are not going to be okay with that. So this is a way for the person that is installing the application to provide certificates, right? But I don't have any, so I'm going to skip and continue. And that should take us to the login page, and for that we're going to use the, actually the right one. So I'll copy, and I'll paste right here. And then this is where we need that license, right? And I believe I just downloaded it today. So this is the license that should have come. That's in the repository. So once we deploy the application, so here are your two options for the quest. There's an easy option and there's a hard option. So easy is going to involve a little bit of command line work, but that's about it. Some Linux commands, probably. I'm not going to tell you the answer yet. But for the harder option, you'll have to probably get your hands a little bit dirtier with Kubernetes, more hands-on. So again, if you complete the easy one, we have Kubernetes rings waiting for you all. If you choose the harder path, not only will you get the ring, but also we'll give you either a headband, or we have a replicated headband or a replicated hoodie. Those are in our booth, so we just have to, we'll save you one for you, and you can pick it up when you'd like. So for what we're going to do right now, I'm just going to go with the hard option, because at the end I do want to show you the solution. And I'm going to click on continue. So as we've talked about the projects from Replicated, the other one that you might have heard of, if you were in the previous session, is our Troubleshoot.sh project. And Troubleshoot.sh allows you to define collectors, redactors, and analyzers in YAML. So you can define, for example, I may want to collect the logs from a pod. I can collect logs from inside a container. I could copy files, right? I may want to exec into a pod and run a command. So if you go into the documentation, you have two kinds you can define, right? A pre-flight and a support bundle. But inside those, you're going to provide it a spec. And it's a YAML spec. And there you can put series of collectors. The collectors will have output, logs, right, JSON files. Then the analyzers can look at those results and provide you a result, pass, fail, or warning. And those can be presented to the end user. So that's kind of what we did in the previous session. What I'm showing you here is our open source project, COTS, which is Replicate App Manager, allows you to have a direct integration with that. Because it runs the pre-flights for you before you install the applications. In this case, it runs a simple Kubernetes version, but you can collect a lot more info. I'm just going to click on continue. And then we can use them as support bundles. So once I click on continue, it'll take you to the app manager, like the dashboard. And we'll see that the application is not running. Right now, it wasn't going to be this easy. So as we can see here, the application, the status is unavailable. It's deployed. What could be going on? So if we look at details, we can see that we have a couple of a service and a deployment that are not loading, right? So I'm going to click on Troubleshoot, and then you click on Analyze Quest for the Ring of Kubernetes. So this is going to run a support bundle spec that it's going to look for certain things in the app. And then once it collects that information, it's using an analyzer to determine if the situation is pass or fail. If it's fail, it's going to show us the failure and included a link to a different article that will have the solution. So I won't click on the solution because I don't want to show it on the screen yet for you all. I'll do that 10 minutes before the close for anybody that gets stuck. But I'd like you all to give it a try before I show it. The license, yes, is in the repository where the instructions were. Excuse me? It's at the root of the repository where the README is. There should be a lab_participant.yaml. Yes. So if you run the support bundle, you should see the result that a config file is not found. And that is the reason why our application is not up and running. So by default, when you use the Troubleshoot project inside of the COTS project, with that integration, you can display tiles to the end user. So the idea here is that IT admin, you may have somebody remotely supporting the application that maybe doesn't have all the Kubernetes skills. So maybe we need to make it a little easier for them. So here we can display with them tiles so they can see what the issue is. Now the nice thing about when you use it with COTS is that there is templating available. So actually, based on the option that you chose, you're going to get a different tile. So if you chose easy, that link will take you to the solution to the easy challenge. If you chose hard, then this tile will give you the link to the hard solution, which is solution 2. So you click on that link. That should give you the information on how to fix the issue. So at this point, I'm going to pause presenting. I'm going to let you all give it a try to fix the issue. If you have the up and running, just raise your hand so we can just verify and make sure you get your reward. And again, we're about 2:41 local time. Oh, wow, OK. So in about 10 minutes or so, I will go through the solution, OK? Just want to make sure you do see that it's solvable. And it all should be documented in the solutions. So I'm going to turn this mic off. And for the next 10 minutes or so, especially for those of you on the remote viewing. We're going to be a little quiet for the next 10 minutes while folks here attempt the solution. And again, for those of you remote, remember to look out for that email where we will offer this same session for you remotely. The caveat, however, is for the Ring, we can only ship it in the United States. So, but we'll think of something for those of you overseas to make sure you have a Quest as well. So stay tuned for that email. You should already gotten it. Please look in your inbox. Hopefully we can provide you the link to sign up for the remote sessions. And with that, I'm going to turn this over now, and just raise your hand if you have any questions, okay? All right, folks. It's almost 10 till. We did get a late start, but how's everybody coming along? Anybody got the app up and running yet? I'll probably go through the solution here in like 2 minutes. So the reason why I put the link in here, of course, was I wouldn't show you the fix right away, so challenge you a little bit. But also, it's also an example of how you could direct your end user to a knowledge base article, right? The whole idea with the Troubleshoot project is that it should get better over time. As you learn new issues, you're writing new analyzers, you're writing new collectors. That way you can surface known issues to your end users. So that can save you a lot of time. You know, when you're troubleshooting an issue, right, you always want to discard the known issues. So if you know when you have this specific error in a log, you can write a regex for it. So you can surface that to the end user so they know, oh, it's a specific issue. We know the fix, right? So that way you're at least eliminating all this simple stuff that you already know. And that way you know whether it's a tier 1 issue or it's something that needs to be escalated. So that way you're not escalating everything, right? So now you're reducing your escalation rates, happy customers, or end users, and that's what we all want, right? Okay, so I'm going to go through the solution now. So I'm going to click on my link. So I went through the more challenging path. And what it's telling me is that there is a config file that's missing, right? It's in the directory etc ring game, and it needs permissions for 400. So this was also for the hard, and for both options, this is where it starts. Both are missing the config file. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. So I'm on the newer instance, I believe. So I'm going to do -L, of course. Now I'm going to, because I just need to know, I'm going to run my pods. Oh, not my pose. Just do that. And of course, the game has been crashing for a while, right? Could there be an it container causing trouble? Maybe. So what we're going to do is we're going to sudo, because it's an etc. I'm going to do sudo touch etc ring-game /config txt. And then since it doesn't need those permissions, I'm going to run a sudo chmod. And if you open the hints, right, all those instructions were there for you. Actually, you know what? I'm lazy, so I'm just going to reuse this command right here. So I don't have to type in the entire path again. I could just copy and paste, but okay. So now if I go back to my get pods, it may take a little bit to reschedule one, and I'm impatient. So I'm going to go keep control, delete pod, and I'm going to delete this offending pod. And once it's deleted, we should hopefully oh, what's going on here? There we go. That looked weird. Aha. So if you chose the basic path, then once you delete that config file, once you create the config file, set the permissions to 400, if you delete the pod, the deployment should schedule a new one. You should have the app come up. If you go back to the app manager, your app should be deployed, and you can click on the open the app. But I chose the more difficult way. So the more difficult way has another issue. So if I go back to the application manager and I do this, it's gone, right? So I did something else here. Yeah, let's have fun here, right? So in this case, and the reason I did this is because, yeah, the UI is nice, right? But you may not always have the UI, right? So how do you troubleshoot that when you don't have a UI? So that's why I went a little harder on you all and knocked the app manager offline. So if you go through the help, you'll see that there's another file that we need to create. So the file is causing some issues. So if you look at the help, it should be the restraining bolt.txt. But, sorry, I just skipped ahead to the solution. So when you don't have the screen, right, you need to run the support bundle on the command line. Now, if you were in previous session, you learned all about how to run troubleshoot on an existing cluster, like they use Katacoda to provision some. When you provision a Kubernetes cluster using curl, one of the nice things is that you automatically get the support bundle plugged in, installed. So if you're deploying curl for your test clusters or your dev clusters, you'll have this already there. All we need to do is provide the plugin spec, what collectors to run, what analyzers to run. There's some that default that you can create one, or you may create your own. So in this case, I created one for us, which is looking for that file that I just mentioned. So I'm going to do a copy. Now, some of you are going to cringe, but I am going to use VI. I'm sorry. So I'm really lazy, so my spec is 1.yaml, because I am that lazy. I'm going to paste my spec here. So just to review what I'm doing here, right? So notice that we're collecting logs, standard stuff. Then we're executing. So this is executing into an actual pod and running a command, right? So here I'm just looking for the config file. It tells me whether it finds it or not. Here's another offending file. The restraining bolt, that's the one that has us offline right now. And then those create results, right? So collectors, again, collect information. Then the analyzers can analyze the collected information and tell you if it found it. So here's our regex for 400. And here's another one for the restraining bolt as well. So this looks good. I'm going to escape, :WQ, oh, lowercase. You use your favorite text editor. I'll hit enter. So now that this is here, all I need to do is run kubecontrol support-bundle, whatever you name your file, right? The name of the file can be whatever you want. Fun fact, I've run it even without the extension. So it can be just file. So this is now an example of how you can use that. If you want to use curl, now you have, for free basically, included a nice support bundle plugin for you. You can write whatever spec you want. If you do https cots.io, I believe that's the one. There's online ones. But if you go to the documentation while this is running, so if you go to Troubleshoot.sh, if you go to get started, if we go to the support bundle, here you have all the information that you need to get started. And that's kind of what Triwa went over in the previous session. But once your bundle is run, you should have this. So the config check is there because we added it, but now it's complaining about a restraint check failing, and it also cannot find the codes ADM service. So to solve this, we're going to create a file, and then we're going to create a service. Do not do it the other way around, because as long as that file is not there, it's going to keep deleting that service. So first, let's create the file. So we'll do sudo touch etc ring-game. And this is a hard one, restraining. I should have given you easier file names, folks. I'm sorry. And then we're just going to set the permissions. Okay. Then the last thing I want to do is create that service. So I also gave you the manifest. Now, for those of you that want a challenge, I gave you the requirements for the service. So if you want to write the YAML yourself from scratch and test your skills, you're more than welcome to do that. But for the purpose of just showing you the, I know I'm terrible just using short names. I'm going to just copy and paste the contents right here. So this is the YAML definition to redeploy that service that got deleted. You do insert, paste, escape, :WQ, exclamation mark, hit enter. And then it's just a good old kubecontrol apply-f. So the service is created, and now it should take just a couple of minutes, not even a minute, a few seconds to come up. Application, we may have to redelete the pod actually. Let's do that. One last thing. Let's reschedule a brand new pod. Let's get a fresh start. Then if you not delete again, do get. There we go, they're all running. So now they should refresh, you should come on. Let's refresh this one. There. So now you should see ready. And once it's ready, you should see this. If you went the hard path, you see this. If you did the easy path, you won't see the UROC. I had to have that little difference so we see which one you did. And that is the solution. Were you all able to solve the? Everybody has got stuck anywhere? Hey, Josh, could you get Tammy? Because we're going to give away the rings. Thank you. So if you complete it, can you raise your hand? And then Tammy, if they have this, let me show you. So folks, if this is on your screen, that means this is the more challenging quest. So if they have this on their screen, they did the more challenging quest. Okay. If it's only 2 sentences, is the basic quest. So basic quest, you get the ring. The more challenging, we'll give them the ring, and then they'll come to our booth later for a hoodie.
Okay, how do I know who's which?
Well, they can give you their, should we do an email address? Oh, let's turn this off.
No, but I mean in terms of hard or easy.
Oh, because if they did the challenging one, this is what they see. Okay. If it's the basic one, they don't see the middle sentence. It's just 2 sentences. So it says, congratulations, you have completed your quest. That's the easy. If you did it the harder path, you rock. So, so I'm going to turn this off. For those of you in the live stream, that really concludes the session. Thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you found this helpful, you found this informative. Please do look for that email for the remote sessions. Thank you so much.